think I need to finally like perfect my YouTube entrance, so all the YouTubers are like, hey, what's up you guys? I'm so excited for today, and I clapped, I'm so sorry. Hey, what's up you guys? I'm so excited to just ramble in front of the camera for you guys. Okay, so I had asked you guys on Instagram whether or not you think that I should go into an in-depth of me and my photography as opposed to street meet and the beginning of street meet, and you guys would like to hear about street meet, so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be talking about street meet today. Street Meet was actually developed inside of a group chat on UNM campus inside of my computer science class with Joel Castellana. Some of you guys know who he is. He's like one of the only computer science people at UNM. And so while he was lecturing, I was talking to my friends about I think Milton was in there, and I'm like, oh gosh, like what in the world? I can't find a group that I want to shoot with. I can't find like this solid thing that I want to be a part of. Like I can't find it. I had gone out and shot with a group of photographers here probably about 3 years ago, and they had made it pretty clear that I wasn't good enough to be in the group yet, and I knew I needed to learn, and I knew I needed some perfecting, and I needed hands-on, and I need somebody to just like, and I needed more practice too. I was pretty much complaining. I was like, oh guys, I can't find this group, like I can't find a group that I belong to, and blah blah blah, like we can't go out and do group shoots. Like I just think that it would be awesome like if there was this big huge thing with lots of people and we could all just come and shoot together. And one of them was like, why don't you just make it? Like instead of searching for one, why don't you just make it? And so I'm like, oh my gosh, you are correct. Like you are so right. And so I'm like, okay, all right, we're making this thing. So I immediately, while in class, I made the Instagram page. I started looking at things to promote. I started looking at dates, and I want to say it was around April. Generally, it's about 1 month of promotion and 2 months to have the featured members. And I'll go through all of that later. But so we had exactly 2 months from April until June 1st. And so I'm like, all right, so we got to book the venue. We want food trucks. We want all of these different things. Like we're going to make this thing happen. Like who do I admire in the photo community that I would want to come and like learn from and see their shots and come to this event that I created? Well, slowly learning through that process where it was an I thing, where I'm like, oh man, I wish I had a team. And like, I had my parents, I had my sister, I had some support from the community, like the group that I was talking to. I had support from Garrett, and it was just kind of difficult to go through this whole thing while in school, while doing it the first time, just like, wow, we're gonna do this thing. And so in all honesty, I feel like if I were to do it again, I would have started street meet in the summer, and it would have been a back to school thing. That way I could have planned during the summer. But now that we've kind of gotten the hang of it, we know like the things that we need to do, it's a lot easier, and I can do it while in school and get the venues and all of that. And now we have an awesome team, like awesome team. So after we created the Instagram page, I put it in the group chat and I was like, oh, here's the page, guys. And they're like, oh, wow, you were serious. And I was like, oh, yeah, you guys came up with a great idea. Like, why not just make our own? Like, make our own thing that we can be a part of and not go searching for something that doesn't exist yet. And so that's how it started.
Talk to no one, don't you look at nothing. Focus on me, look into my eyes. Come a little closer, let me tell you something. Eat your ego, honey, swallow your pride.
mine, 'cause you're mine.
'Cause you're mine. 'Cause you're mine. 'Cause you're mine.
I used to be a rifle, yeah, I had my distance, whistling like a bullet in the sky.
I used to be a psycho, yeah, I had my demons crawling like a spider up my spine.
I spotted you the second I walked in the building. I knew that you would let me get you high.
I wanna hear the things you say when no one's listening, but that don't matter anyway. 'Cause you're mine. 'Cause you're mine. 'Cause you're mine. 'Cause you're mine.
When I was developing Street Meat, I was like, I don't want people to go through the same thing I did, where you can't find this group to belong to. You feel like no one thinks that you're good enough, and that you can't really create anything, and that you're not underlooked, but you're not good enough as so-and-so in the community, and they won't shoot with you because you're not good enough. But I found that just Albuquerque shooters in general, everybody that I would reach out to like 3 years ago, so in 2019, 2016, right when I moved back from Houston, or from Texas area, I was like looking for people to shoot with, and everybody was like, oh, you want my location? Well, you're gonna have to go and find it yourself. And I'm like, why can't you just let me, you give me, I'm not gonna copy your shots, like, help me out here. And so then I'd ask people, I'm like, hey, let's go and shoot sometime. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, all right, how about next week? And they're like, yeah. So it'd come to next week, and I'm like, well, hey, are we still gonna go shoot like this Friday or Saturday, something like that? And they're like, oh, I'm busy, maybe next time. So I'd hit them up next time, and they're like, oh, actually something came up. So nobody would ever shoot with me. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I just need people. I just need creative people around me, not just learning, but people who can teach me, and also people who are super invested in photography and super invested in this thing, and like to hang out with people and want to like have the same passion as I do. When developing the rules, and when developing all of the heart of Street Meat, in all honesty, it's church-based. I've been a part of church my entire life. The one that's here in Albuquerque, I've been going to since I think I was 3. We took like a 2-year hiatus when we moved to Hawaii and then Texas, and then we came back to the exact same church. My dad was a youth pastor up until we moved, and then we came back and he was a youth pastor again. Him and my mom are the youth pastors here at our church. The model of Street Meat and how I've looked at it was, how do you get people onto this one idea without them being paid, and with people volunteering their time to come and either teach other photographers, or to hang out, or to be open like that. And if you look at a church model, it is almost the exact same thing. Like, how are you going to get people to latch on to this spiritual vision, and this vision to reach unsaved believers outside of the church? And how are you going to get people that will, one, donate to the church to where they're tithing and they're doing stuff and they're completely invested in a vision, as well as people coming on Sundays to watch the children, and coming in to greet, and just being really excited about this whole church thing. Well, how do you do that in a creative environment with photography? Like, it has to be easier. Like, it has to be easier than this church thing that so many people are against. And so I'm like, all right, let's see if this works. And so that's where I think the whole featured member thing came from, where it's you give a person a vision and you give this person a purpose, and they're locked on and on board with you, where it's like, hey, you're making a difference. When you come to Street Meet and you're a featured member, we are saying, hey, look at this person. They're doing the best that they can. They're one of the highest, not one of the highest, they're one of the people that we look up to as photographers, we look up to as models. This person affects the community in a positive way, and we want them on our team as featured members to headline events. After creating Street Meet, though, Milton had reached out and he's like, oh, hey, have you ever heard of this group out in LA? And I'm all, no, who are they? And it's Street Meet LA. And I'm like, oh, like, I swear to you guys, like, I promise, like, I had never heard of them before. I really thought that Street Meet, those words, Street Meet for a photo meetup, was an original concept that had not been done before. Like, that's how out of the loop I was with group shoots. Like, I wasn't researching it or seeing if there were people that I could build an idea off of. I just never heard of it. And so before actually our first meet, Milton was all, yeah, you should really check out this group called Street Meet LA. And I look and I'm like, these guys are goals. Like, they do huge events with smoke grenades and these huge things and fire breathers, and these people, these models, like, everything looks so gorgeous, and their big events and their parks and like everything that they do, they have a community driven to help the community. Like, his name is Dov. Dov actually runs Street Meet LA, and over the course of a year, I've gotten to somewhat get to know him in a way that I'm super fond of him, where I believe in his vision, and he's helped me out so much with different problems and different conflicts and things that have come up here in our Street Meet, where I'm like, hey, I need help. Like, you're the only one who I think can help me, because you're doing this and you've been doing it way longer than we have. They just celebrated their 5-year anniversary when we celebrated our first. But the cool thing is that we are not far behind in numbers behind them, and we're only 1 year old. And so I just take it like, those of you who come to Street Meet, like, you guys are doing like the ability to impact this many people in this short amount of time is nothing short of like basic, like miraculous. Like, this is something that has to be life-changing and has to be this culture shift if it's catching on fire like this. Either that or it's about to flop soon, but I don't think so, because I'm not giving up. After I saw Street Meet LA, I was like, oh dude, gosh, wow, like, super inspiring and just super cool. And so I followed their page and I was like, guys, like, this is so sick. I was just a super fan right away. But right from the get-go, I had asked Dov, I'm like, hey, do you guys incorporate cosplay? And he's like, no, they're kind of their own separate thing. And theirs is open to any creative. While in the original intent of my mind, I'm like, I want parkour artists, and I want makeup artists, and I want to try to like merge painting and live performance into bands coming to play, into photography being taught, into models having workshops and networking with one another, and kind of like, oh, okay, so these filmmakers might need a music artist one day, and like multiple ways of like creative photographers needing people who can flip upside down and sideways, and photographers wanting to do skateboard films but they don't know anybody good. Like, that was the original intent of this, is to gather every single part of this creative realm of like, you do fine arts, okay, cool, come on. Like, oh, you have a band, okay, come on. Like, and slowly but surely we're gonna be like able to do more and more and more and more and more and more and more. And then like that's the goal, is to make it this all-encompassing type thing. Fast forward to when school gets out, we developed a thing called featured members, and I don't know where this idea came from. I think it was just like concerts. Like if you go to a concert, you want to know who's playing. So EDM concerts, it has like so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and then the big one is like Nightmare or something like that, where it like has them all listed. Like, why don't we do that with this? So I reached out to probably about 40 photographers, models, cosplayers, makeup artists, SFX artists, and there was a couple parkour guys that I had asked. And so I just spent my time like literally just like, hey, we're this new thing. We'd like you to headline or be our featured member and just come out and support this thing and come and have fun and all of this stuff. And then I had a lot say yes. And then I had a lot say yes and didn't show up. So I had 40 of the featured members booked. I had like Harley Quinn 505, some of the original ones, and like I had Harley Quinn, I had May, like May has been around from the very beginning. It was me, Celine, Garrett, Darian, like all of these solid people from the very, very beginning. Victor Von Frank was there at the very beginning. And the original place that we were going to hold it was going to be downtown, like in between Cole and 3rd. It's this little parking, it's like this little parking lot that the church across the street uses, but apparently I don't know whose land it is. And so I was like, well, I want that corner, and then people can go out and shoot from there. And I went about trying to find out who the owner was and all of this stuff, and they were like, I don't think you can use that. And I'm like, oh man. In the meantime, I had reached out to a couple of food trucks, and I had reached out like Pop Fizz, I had reached out to, I think it was Kamikaze and Crepeology. And I had messaged back and forth with them. All of them were fine with it. Like all of them had sent me their papers, and I sent them to the fire marshal, and I got our events permit. We ran into the issue before we actually booked the place. But Crepeology was like, hey, we have a store opening in ABQ Uptown. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, oh yeah, why don't you host street meet there? Like, we will host street meet there. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a great idea. In all honesty, I probably wouldn't have done that, and I don't think they would have either. Like, it just didn't work out well for either of us. The venue was super crowded, and it wasn't conducive to creativity. The smoke bombs had to be up against like this dumpster fence. Y'all, if you didn't attend the first one, like these ones that are being hosted now are so much easier and so much less stressful and a way better venue, because we actually know what we're kind of doing now. And well, I know what I'm doing, and I have a team that supports and like throws out venues and is able to help me on that creative side of thinking. And so we had it, and we started right on time, and there was maybe 20 people there, and I'm like talking, I'm going over rules. We didn't have the lanyards. Like, I had maybe 5 of them because I couldn't find them in town. I was a mess. I was crying because I was worried that it wasn't gonna happen, and I felt like I was doing too much with the featured members thing, and people were messaging me and they couldn't find parking, and it was so bad. And then I had to cancel on the food trucks because an actual restaurant was hosting us, and so it would just have been bad business. Oh man. And so when we got there, we like put out cones, and there was a bunch of things with handicap parking that we couldn't do. We had people who were showing up with cars that they wanted to do car photography with. After about maybe half an hour, like the featured members probably dropped. Like there was only about 30 that came, and then after the first 30 minutes, like all of them left. They're like, yeah, this is kind of not worth it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? But there were a few that stayed till like the very, very end. But overall, it was a pretty good meet. I think we had around 70 people in attendance, 70 to 100 people in attendance, like in between there overall. Like I know that the picture that we all took has 50, I think it's like 53 or 54 people in it, and that's not including all of the featured members that I had booked to be the headliner, featured model, featured photographer, featured members of it, and then just people left afterwards, or people left and some people weren't even in the photo, like they were all anyways. Overall attendance, I feel like it was like around 70 to 100 throughout the period of the meet. So when we started doing the featured members things, we realized that that was part of how it was so successful. Like it was so successful in those beginning ones because people felt invested in this idea, as opposed to just this. It's not just a group hangout, it was this thing to collaborate, meet new friends. It was like all encompassing all of these problem areas that I had struggled with. And so I always joke, and when people are like, oh, like, why or what is street meet? I'm like, well, I originally made it for me so that way I could come and shoot with all of my friends and feel accepted and feel like there's this thriving environment where we could all create together. And I guess the invites got a little out of hand, and now there's like 300 of us. And I'm kidding, where I didn't really make it for myself, but I built it off of a feeling that I had that I didn't want anybody else to have. And so I was impressed by it because I'm like, hey, well, we actually made this thing happen. After that, we had people who were like, hey, I want to get involved. Hey, I want to get involved. Hey, I want to get involved. I'm like, thank God. I needed a team so bad. And so I know that's when May hopped on. That's when a couple other photographers hopped on. And so we started building this team for the next one. So, and I had talked to a couple of them, and I'm like, oh, I think this is only going to be... Actually, I was talking to Haley, and I was like, oh, I don't think that we're going to be doing these often. Like, I think I want to do once a year. And so I told her, I was like, oh, yeah. And she's like, oh, yeah, maybe you want to do, like, biannually. Like, on the first flyer, it says first annual. And I'm like, that's what my plan was once a year to do this big, huge photo meetup. Heck no. So in between June 1st and the 4th of July, I don't know how it came about where we were like, oh, let's do another one, but smaller. But just like before Street Meet, the only groups that I would shoot in were to be for the clothing company that I was working for, or a couple clothing companies that I was working for at the time. And that's the group that's the group we would use. And so it was like originally me, Garrett, Darian, Cece, Bella, and a couple other people. And so after that, we were like, oh yeah, let's do a 4th of July shoot. But instead of it just being us as the group, like, let's extend it to everybody who came to Street Meet the first time. And it turned out to be just as big as the first one. ended up having it at Robert. It's up on the west side. It's up on the west side. Montana. I don't know where it is. All I know is it's like Robert B. Hoover Dam, something like that. Anyways, that's where we hosted the 4th of July street meet, and the turnout was huge. We were able to do the steel wool. We were able to do smoke grenades, and there was a huge turnout for it, and it was awesome. And so by now I'm like, man, like we really have like this solid thing going. Like there's enough people invested into this thing that we could really have them all the time. After our second meet and third meet, our Summerfest meet, we started planning for the second big street meet. When we started it, I was like, I probably had a team of about 12 to 15 people at that point. We had ideas, we had venues. We were like, how can we get people invested more? We were talking about doing t-shirts. We threw out the lanyards part for all the featured members. And side note, the reason why I wanted everybody to have lanyards that it's a featured member is because I'm one of those people, and I assume that other people are, that if you go to an event and you get one of those lanyards, like the VIP lanyard, or they always give them to us at youth camps. And so back in the day when we used to go to this one out in Columbus, Texas, they'd give us these little name tags, and each year they'd probably be a different color, and it tells you like when to go to breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like it'll say it on the schedule. Well, those we kept them as souvenirs. We'd put them on things. You could always see them in other people's rooms that you'd go over to. Like they were this keepsake item that everybody held and kept, and I lost mine and I was devastated. I was like, oh my gosh, where are my Discovery Camp name tags? And so now I keep like all of the ones that I do from Experiments in Cinema. I keep all of the ones from Street Meet, all of the ones that we do for the youth camps. Like I have all of these lanyards, and they're like this keepsake that you don't really have to buy at the event. So that's how featured members get lanyards, because selfishly it's something that I really like, and I assume that you will like it. But if I'm wrong, just don't take the lanyard and I'll take it home. Just kidding. So our second meet, we started doing lanyards, and we were doing, we wanted to do the big stuff like that. This past meetup, June, the big one, June 1st, the Pastel Punk, was our 1 year anniversary, and we finally made it. went from a first annual, we're only going to do this once a year, to, oh my gosh, we've done 9 to our 1-year anniversary. And so that's how it kind of happened. And now we're at 10 after this one that we had this past Sunday. But yeah, I hope you guys like this. I hope you guys learning this side of me that was actually really hurt by the photo community, and then we turned it around and people were like, hey, just make your own. I'm like, okay, it's a great idea. And so I almost failed in it, but it turned out actually being okay. And then we learned like Street Meet's basically modeled after a church. So that's pretty cool. And then you guys all get lanyards because it's one of my favorite things to get at events, because I don't have to pay for anything else and I still get a souvenir to remember. So that's all I have for you guys. I feel very honored that you guys would want to hear about this from my point of view and why it was started and why all of these things, but go a little bit deeper than just some text on one of the Street Meet slides. So click that like button, subscribe, and down below, if you guys have any ideas, whatever you guys want to know, drop a comment down below and I will look through them and look to make further videos on them. For those of you who are watching this video who do not follow ABQ Street Meet, follow ABQ Street Meet on Instagram. It is at ABQ Street MEET, not to be confused with roadkill. It's not MEAT, it's MEET. Also follow us on Facebook. It's Facebook/ABQ Street Meet, and go ahead and follow us on our website for any details that you guys need to know. Our upcoming meets, that's where you'll register to be a featured member for future meets. All of our past meets are on there, and also how to support us. Down below in the link or in the descriptions, I'll put a link to all of our social media pages, as well as the Facebook page and some of the YouTube videos that are coming out from some of our fabulous videographers in the ABQ community. But yeah, I think that's all. Peace.